everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Video Games Ahoy. My name is Jonathan Radford, and today I'm joined by Daf Gape.
Hello.
Zach Hamilton.
Hi.
And special guest for this week's podcast, Callum Hurley.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
Really, really good, man. Yeah. How are you guys doing? And welcome to the podcast, Callum.
Oh, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Zach has told us an awful lot about you, but yeah, how's your week been, guys? Or yeah, even longer if you want to go back further.
You know what? It's been a busy week this week. I've been having to move house this week, so I haven't had very much time for gaming. But I have had a lot of time for Pokemon Go for anyone who saw that episode. So starting to get more into it.
Okay, we'll hear more about Pokemon Go in a little bit. Do you know, I think I said this last week. I only got into Pokemon Go for a little bit. But I wish I played it more. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm at the point now, I'm like, yeah, let's play Pokemon Go, and I can literally walk to my park and back because I got nowhere else to go before I'm just bombarded by like 10 people. So, but yeah, I got some sad news for you guys.
Oh no!
I think the mouse has he's left the house, and I don't think
Mickey.
I think he's sadly passed on, but yeah,
that's sad.
sad times, but he had to go. But yeah, so we should push on with the podcast. Stop talking about a dead mouse in my house. Callum is a VR consultant. Is that how we would describe you best, Callum?
Yeah, that's sort of the title I give myself. I do a lot of things, and that's the best umbrella term I could come up with.
It's a good term. It explains. Well, I mean, to me, I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty intense. That sounds pretty good. But he's hosted events at EGX, which is pretty cool. We're going to have a chat about VR soon. But if you want to find out more about Callum, you can take a peek at his YouTube page, Multi-Callum. Is that right?
That's correct. You'll find me as Multi-Callum on pretty much everything.
Yeah, I was going to say that's also his Twitter handle as well. So if you are listening...
MySpace, Bebo.
Exactly.
Bebo.
Exactly.
Now we're going back.
Yeah.
Bebo. We should definitely get a Bebo account.
Oh,
That's the
Bebo.
best
Is it
thing
still
ever.
a thing?
I have no idea, but I hope so.
I want. If not, we should try and get a domain name of like a
Yes.
just call ourselves Bebo
Oh,
instead of
yeah.
having like www.videogamesahoy. Like no, just full Bebo.
Just Bebo.
.org or whatever we have to have
Oh,
so that we can
man.
have the Bebo.
There's some like really
Yeah.
tragic stories of like adults now looking back at their Bebo account from the like 17, 18, and oh my, I did that with my
wouldn't
MySpace
dare.
recently, and I just like, right, that's gone, never to be seen again, never to be seen. It did not exist. But yeah, this podcast is supported by a whole host of wonderful people, our lovely patrons. But the person still steering this ship towards a glorious future is our VIP crew member, David. So thank you, David, and thank you to everyone that contributes. We love you guys. We really, really
Thank you,
love
guys.
you guys. If you would like to support us, then check out our Patreon page. You can pay £1, £5, £10, or an amount of your choosing. That would be amazing. But also, if you can't or you don't want to, that's totally cool. Just listening to the podcast, it's like the warm hug we need. As well as Patreon, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and if you want to see our faces, check us out on YouTube. Speaking about YouTube, me and Dav recently did a stream on Twitch for Streets of Rage 4, which has just gone up on YouTube, so check it out. I think Dav is doing another stream this comes out on Saturday, but he's doing the stream on Friday. What is that for? Xenoblade, Dav?
That'll be part 2 of the Xenoblade Chronicles full playthrough.
Yeah.
Did the first 4 hours last week, and
Amazing.
now, hopefully by the time this comes out, the second 4 hours will be up on the old YouTubes. And then on
Amazing.
Sunday, I'll be doing episode 2 of the Batman Telltale series. Did episode 1 last week, also on the YouTubes. And then, episode 2 will be streaming live, twitch.tv/videogamesahoy on Sunday, 1 p.m. till roughly 3 p.m.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect. So make sure you follow Dab on Sunday, and if you want to watch some of our YouTube videos, we have the Streets of Rage 4. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but it was a lot of fun. And Zach even joined in to up the bants as well. It was a lot.
I got to dip in and out. I've been as I said, I've been kind of busy over the past few days, so I was kind of dipping in and out while I was like out and about doing stuff. But I got to see you guys finish the game. I literally was just like in the middle of something and then just popped up for you guys beating the game.
Yeah.
Spoilers, everyone. Sorry. Spoiler. They beat the game.
Dav, I think I think it was the first try as well, wasn't it? We were trying to figure out how many
that last level.
for the last level. Yeah, for the last level, I think we were trying to figure out how many times it would take us, because the first level we did when we came back, did not take us one turn. It took us about 4.
Yeah, because we did the first 8 missions
Yeah.
on the first part of the stream, so we had like 4 missions left.
Yeah.
And it took us almost the same amount of time.
Yeah. It really did. That's not an exaggeration. Watch the stream, you'll find out. But yeah, that's all our YouTubes. I'll put a link in the description for all of our channels, as well as Callum's as well. So yeah, make sure you follow those. Give us a like, I should say, and throw us a comment as well. We like talking to you.
There's some lovely comments this week.
There was.
Yeah, it's nice to
really
hear what
enjoying
people
it.
think. Actually, it's kind of interesting because we kind of get this. It's for us. It's just like this weird sort of Zoom chat where we're talking. I'm allowed to say whatever I want. Apparently, I can tell you how much I hate beloved games. But it's nice to hear what people how people are kind of finding it at home and all that stuff. It's good.
And we're doing really well on YouTube as well. Subscribers, we're doing quite well. So yeah, follow us. We really appreciate it. But that's enough of that. That's enough of the boring stuff. Let's move on to the stuff we want to talk about. So Callum, are you okay to talk about VR for the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes? Is that cool with you?
Sure thing, absolutely.
So I thought the best way to help our listeners and people listening in really get an idea of what you do. Is there any chance you could let us know what it is that you do as a VR consultant?
Yeah, sure. There are a few different components to it. I mean, my day job, I work for a company called Cornerstone. We use VR actually outside of gaming. We use it in social care.
Wow.
Focusing mostly at the moment on fostering and adoption services. So a lot of it is experience to help prepare upcoming foster and adoptive parents on the kind of situations that a lot of the kids in the social care system have been through. So some really quite realistic and surprisingly harrowing experiences, actually.
Yeah.
Because, you can read as many case studies as you want, but you're still ultimately imagining what someone's been through. But with a real kind of visual, especially for... we're giving these experiences to a lot of people who have never done any kind of VR before. This is all new to them. And generally, that's the group that gets most immersed in that kind of content. They've never experienced anything like it before. And essentially, the mission is just to increase empathy and better prepare people for what they're going to go through. We also use it with social workers in training to increase empathy in social workers as well. And we're expanding it from there. We're in development with an application at the moment that will allow people to chat in VR, so specifically for social workers, with a lot of different interactive elements, which will also just change up the environment for kids as well. When they do meet with their social workers, it's not in just a social worker's office. You can have all these wonderful, amazing environments. And so, yeah, that's my day-to-day work.
That's amazing, man.
That's so brilliant.
That is seriously, yeah. I was just about to say, like, that is incredible. That is so
incredible. When you hear about people, what people kind of understand about gaming and stuff and about VR, which I think most people don't know very much about VR.
Oh, I personally don't. I said that.
And I definitely, I remember actually, Callum, you talked to me a little bit about this before, but I've not heard about it totally in depth. But I think it's just hearing you talk about how it's being used to increase empathy and give people an idea of things that there's no other way of communicating completely validates the VR thing, because it could totally be seen as in the same way that like 100 years ago, well, not quite 100 years ago, certainly when television starting, people going like, television will pass.
Yeah, it's a fad or a gimmick.
Yeah,
it's not a big thing. But doing all this like amazing positive stuff for people like legitimizes it in of itself. You know what I mean? Like that alone makes it. Because I'm already sold on VR. You don't have to, I don't have to be convinced that it's cool.
Yeah.
But I think convincing, Joe Blogs, someone who's not, as you say, you're talking about people who are mostly not really exposed to that whole thing at all.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That
so
seriously
cool.
is really, really interesting, man. Because I didn't realize that is actually specifically what you did. So that is actually, wow.
Yeah, that's generally the reaction when I tell people what we do at Cornerstone, because you think VR generally, you think gaming, and that's understandable. That's where most of the advertising comes in. That's where most of the investment comes from.
Yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned getting your regular old Joe blogs into it and people calling it a fad. I mean, that's been part of my battle for the last. God, I've been working in VR for about 4 years at this point, which doesn't sound like long. But for me, being at the age I am is a long time for me.
And it's long when everyone's saying that all the time as well. If you're getting that all the time, it's like that's a long time to be constantly facing the same argument every single time.
Yeah.
And in a business that's only lasted maybe 6 or 7 years, 4 years is over half of the entirety of its lifespan.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
You've been working in it as long as most people. There's not many people who are miles ahead of you. Is the thing.
And that's why I consider myself very lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
And
because you're really coming at it from the ground up, really.
Yeah. Well, so one thing I was going to ask about that, because we just talking about in VR always kind of feeling like it's on the cusp, or whether it is a fad. Do you think there's been a lot of talk recently, and I think one thing specifically is Half-Life Alyx. That is I think recently that's been the one thing that's kind of pushed VR a lot, because one Half-Life is one of the most beloved series of all time. People have been searching for Half-Life 3, so it does kind of feel like the perfect way for a lot of people to go, right, I'm getting VR because I want to play Half-Life 3. But do you feel like personally that, I'm totally with Zach. I don't know much about VR, but I'm totally on board with it because it's just finding its feet. That's what it feels like to me on the outside, at least, going, it's going to take its time. But from your perspective, do you think VR is on the cusp of really breaking into the mainstream? Do you think it'd be a few more years from now?
It depends on what you mean by bringing to the mainstream.
Yeah.
So, yes, I do think you're looking at within the next 3 years a big spike in VR usage, ownership, purchase. But at least not for the next 5 years. I don't think you'll be looking at level of games consoles. Because ultimately, as exciting as it is, and genuinely when you get people in a well-made, incredibly immersive game like Half-Life Alyx, I have yet to meet someone genuinely who isn't blown away by it. I mean, at my last job, where I did introduce people to VR every single day, I'd put 60-year-old women, 13-year-old kids, all sorts into VR and trying out all these different games, and it genuinely it does have potential for a larger demographic than standard gaming, just because of that immersion factor.
Absolutely.
It feels more like an experience than a video game for a lot of people. But the difficulty is as amazing as VR is, you can never underestimate how much people love to sit on their sofa. The best VR games are really active. They do require you to stand. You are really interacting with the world, and that's amazing. But quite often you're going for a 1 hour session. Maybe if you're really hardcore into a game, you're going for a 2 hour session. But you get people, I say people as if I'm not one of them, with regular console games just sitting down for a casual 3-4 hour gaming session on a normal day. You're not going to get that as much in VR. If you do, you're going to get fit, and that's great. But it's just not common.
My opinion, I guess, of VR headsets is they seem like they've got that potential just to be a dust collector. You pay 400 quid and you go, wow, what an experience, and then you never pick it up again. Like every 50-year-old in the nation has a Nintendo Wii, and they went, oh, bowling, this is amazing, and then 3 months down the line, the Wii's still in the corner collecting dust. And
it's all about the games, as it always is. And what you enjoy and what you find. So for me, even though I worked in VR very much was that. Most of my gaming, still on my PC and console in front of the TV, but I like jumping in for a VR game every now and then. But since then, starting about a year ago, I found a game called Echo VR, which is made by Ready at Dawn, who did The Order 1886, all of the PSP God of War games, Daxter, and all sorts. Echo VR is a zero-gravity... there are multiple game modes, so the way that movement is handled is the most interesting thing about it. So instead of just having an analog stick to move forward, it's like you're in zero G. You're physically grabbing onto the walls and pulling yourself forward and floating like you would in a space station.
That's cool.
Yeah,
and
that's so cool.
the mode that I'm obsessed with is called Echo Combat. It's a sci-fi shooter. And so you've got different modes. You've got a payload mode and you've got a capture the point mode and all this sort of stuff. But it's incredibly intense. The community around it, while small, is dedicated. And actually, if you stick with the game for even just more than a month, you'll get to know pretty much everyone in the game. And so you go online and it's the same faces. And that's actually quite a good thing. I've got like genuine real life friends now that I've met in this game. And I play Echo Combat almost every evening. I'm absolutely obsessed with it, and just like you would, people obsessed with Call of Duty, FIFA, whatever it is they play every night, just because the gameplay is so addictive. Some of that is out there for VR, and more of that will come out for VR as time moves on, and that's what keeps people in. As amazing as these single player stories are, just like single player games on console, a lot of people will buy them, play through them, and then put them down until the next game.
Do you So I would say, that it is incredible. I think the one thing I've always thought about the VR is it's every time I've seen it, because one of my friends has it and he had Skyrim, which I can only play for a little bit because I was only visiting him, and it was amazing to see the game, but it wasn't built for that. My brother also has one, and he has a few games, but again, they feel more like Dav mentioned, they feel more like the tester games you'd find on like the Nintendo Wii, where you'd find a package of games and it's like you can complete them in like 30 minutes or so. Do you think that the price point of the headsets essentially is what limits, not the investment, but is really what limits a lot of people from experiencing it? Do you think that there's going to be a point soon where the headsets will come down in price, or do you think it'll be like maybe 10 years before it's as easy, I guess, maybe not as easy as buying an Xbox or a PlayStation, but it's nowhere near as expensive? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Price is a huge barrier to entry and has been since VR launched. Even though it's not as bad now, where, in 2016, when the Rift and Vive first launched, they were both over £800, not including the £1,000+ PC you needed to run them. Things have changed a lot since then. We've got the Oculus Quest, which is an incredibly well-made standalone headset. It doesn't require a PC, it doesn't require a console. Literally, you buy the unit and you've got it, and it's got a lot of the best VR games ported over to it, and it's £400. It's not ideal pricing, but it's now within game console price territory.
Well, this seems to be the thing though, right? Because for our generation of gamers, we're not expecting to be playing VR very much. So it seems like it's like, all right, well, I bought my PlayStation or my Xbox or whatever, and that's my games thing, but I'm kind of expecting to spend that because I've always wanted to be. But if I went back 30, 40, 50 to when my dad was my age, he wasn't expecting to spend £300 on a console every 7 years or so. And the same with kids a bit younger than us. They're expecting to have tablets is a more common thing that you would expect to have, but we wouldn't really expect to have, except for maybe for work, and so we wouldn't expect to have for our entertainment necessarily. And so I suppose really what it comes down to is once kids have got the hold of it, and it's the thing that they're expecting to be able to do, presumably that's a big part of making it commonplace.
Yeah, absolutely. The difficulty is that it's still such a new industry.
Totally.
We're at the point where the form factor isn't even settled on yet. as much as most headsets at the moment look all the same, we're actually this year just starting to get some VR headsets that are more like glasses.
Wow.
They are much closer to the face. They they genuinely look like glasses, bit thicker, but are not the big bulky things we have at the moment. Now those headsets are very much prototypes at the moment. There are restrictions. They have smaller field of views. They're wired because you can't fit a battery in a pair of glasses and all this other kind of stuff. But the fact we're already at that point where we have working prototypes means realistically we're going to see some of these headsets on the shelves in the next sort of 2-3 years.
Costing £1,000.
Potentially, yeah. Realistically, it's when all these things meet. It's when the price goes low enough and the form factor gets small and light enough that it doesn't look... it's strange. People really care about how you look. People are really concerned about looking silly when they've got it on and they're doing all these things. And it's amazing how much people care about it because they're not wrong. Everyone looks dumb in VR. I'm going to say that right now. Everyone looks dumb in VR.
Yeah, you feel cool when you're in it, though.
You do feel cool when you're in it.
About 2 Christmases ago, when my brother bought his VR headset, he filmed my dad wearing... My dad's a man in his 60s. He knows nothing about technology. I love the man, but he knows absolutely nothing about technology. And he was doing VR, and you could just see how... You could physically see how terrified he was, because we'd kind of be expecting that, or at least expecting... Maybe we have an idea of what to expect. He just had no idea what to expect, and you could see that he was just freaking out because of what he was seeing. And it's just, I think, like Zach was saying, that our generation maybe it's becoming more it is becoming more accessible, but it is crazy what the future is going to hold. We'll park it there for now because we're going to move on to some other stuff. But before we do, what I was going to ask you is, off the top of your head, if you can think of them, you can say it now, say it later. Like the 2 best starting headsets to get for anyone that is interested in buying a VR or to at least check out, what would they be from your perspective?
Sure. I mean, the first answer without a doubt is the Oculus Quest. It's not only a semi-affordable and completely standalone headset. Don't worry about consoles or PC. If you do later down the line decide to buy a gaming PC, you can plug it into a PC and it turns into a PC headset. They added that functionality recently, and so that's definitely up there, number 1. Number 2 is a difficult one because it totally depends on... If you have a PC, then I would say get yourself an Oculus Rift S if you want to go affordable, or a Valve Index if you happen to have £1,000 lying around and want the best experience you can get. It feels mean to say avoid something right now, but I would avoid the PlayStation VR right now, because as much as I love it, it's getting great exclusives. I can't wait for Iron Man in July. I played the demo last week. It's awesome. But I firmly believe that headset is being replaced in the next 2 years. And so I don't know if you necessarily want to drop £250 on a headset, the separate controllers and stuff, just to have it replaced down the line, though it is forward compatible.
Johnny?
Yes?
Would you quickly ask me which VR headset I bought in January?
Zach, which VR headset did you buy in January?
Well, it definitely wasn't the PlayStation 4 one, except for yes, it definitely was.
Do you think Callum would have had more? Do you think Callum would have had more respect for you if you bought the Nintendo VR headsets?
What's it even called? The
Labo VR.
Labo VR, yeah. It's just literally 2 goggles, isn't it? It's just that's all.
Labo VR.
It's just this.
I was actually thinking of the virtual. What is it? The
virtual boy, yeah.
The virtual
boy, right? Yeah. Which might be about the same level as the Labo.
The Labo VR. It's a real shame. I was curious about what they were doing with that, and it's rough. Yeah. It's real rough. There's nothing wrong with your purchase of a PSVR. There are some genuinely... PSVR was my first headset I had at home, and there are some amazing games. Holy crap, get Iron Man VR when it comes out. Get Resident Evil 7.
To be fair, when I was deciding which VR I was going to buy, I asked you, and you said, you said, probably don't get the PS4 one, and I ignored you, so that's my own fault. But to be honest, the main thing was, I really wanted to play... I played a little bit of Resident Evil 7 last year without VR, and I stopped playing because I wanted to play it with VR because I thought eventually, And the funniest thing is, I got about an hour in, and I can't play it anymore. It's too scary.
Yeah, I was gonna
I'm
say.
too afraid.
Surely,
I'm too afraid. I need someone else there so that like I'm not.
To hold
I
your
might
hand,
cry.
literally hold your hand.
And honestly, I'll probably, if I play it anymore, I think I will cry at some point because it's horrifying.
Legit, you're right though. That is the way to do it. So I did play through the entirety of Resident Evil 7 in VR. I'm not really. I'm an absolute scaredy cat. I don't deal well with horror. I picked up Resident Evil 7 because I wanted to support Capcom because they were putting an investment into a AAA VR game. And I wanted to support that, and so I bought it. But firstly, I couldn't play it with headphones on. I was using the TV audio.
So
Can't do
scary.
that. And I had a friend with me the entire time. And occasionally, actually, he jumped in and played bits as well.
Oh, I think meant he jumped in, as in like he grabbed you. I would die if that was the case.
Oh no, I had to make that a rule in this house.
Yeah.
I had to make a rule in this house that you're not allowed to sneak up on people in VR.
Yeah,
that's
that's
a
a
good
fair
rule.
rule. Don't sneak.
Yeah.
Callum,
For
thank you
for
so
anyone
much,
at
man.
home.
I was just gonna say,
For
Callum,
anyone at
thank
home,
you so
no
much.
doing that.
Okay,
No,
exactly.
we
thank
keep
you.
talking over each other.
Yeah, sorry, man. I think we're in a slight delay, so I'm just like thanking Callum. You're like, yeah, it's Dak. Don't sneak up on people. But yeah, no, seriously, man. Thank you so much. Hopefully we get a chance to talk to you about VR in the future as well. But that was
sure.
genuinely, really intrigued hearing that.
Thank you.
Should we talk about games we've been playing? Dav, do you want to start off? What have you been up to this week?
Sure. So I've been playing a little game that came out a long time ago, but it was on the Nintendo DS. A game called Elite Beat Agents.
Oh, okay.
Great game.
What a weird game. I'm gonna start. I'm just gonna go through a couple of the levels for you. So it's a rhythm game, and there's a scenario that goes on, and you tap the screen at certain points in the music, usually tied to the lyrics as opposed to the music. Bit clunky, the pressing. Sometimes the rhythms feel off, and maybe it's not quite responsive. Anyway, here's some of the songs you can have. So this will like kind of give away the era, although not really. You've got September, Earth, Wind and Fire. You've got YMCA, The Village People. You've got Skater Boy, Avril Lavigne. You've got Canned Heat, Jamiroquai. You've got Material Girl, Madonna. You've got the Anthem, which I think is Jimmy Eats World.
Oh yes. Oh, what a song.
No, it's Good Charlotte.
Good Charlotte, it is.
Good
Thank
Charlotte.
you.
Oh, I'm thinking of the middle. I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Middle's a good one.
You've got Cher's Believe. You've got ABC by the Jackson 5.
When did this game come
this
out?
is
Dude, so this came out
2008, 2009.
really.
I think it's 2007-ish, yeah. So
Wow.
So these are the kind of songs you've got in this game, and let me just talk you through one of the scenarios. One of them is Skater Boy. You are right. So all the scenarios is something bad happens to someone. They need help. They shout help, and then these cool 3 Men in Black style agents come along to like dance them to victory. So in their situation. So one of them is a babysitter. And like she's struggling, and her like jock boyfriend's over and stuff, and she wants to like go out with him like on like a regular be boyfriend and girlfriend kind of a thing, while babysitting, and the baby is trying to get the baby to bed so she can ask him, and so she screams help, and these 3 like secret agents come along to try and help her like babysit so she can ask her boy to be her boyfriend, and basically every time the baby does something weird. You have to like press the buttons for the music, and then the jock boyfriend will get inspired, see footballs in his eyes, and go, "Oh, this baby's like a football. I'll do this," or like throw him to like into the cot or whatever, to, like to feed him or whatever, like craziness. And then eventually it's like, "Will you be my steady?" And he's like, "What? Me? Yeah, cool. Yeah." That's just level 1. Another level, you're helping a taxi driver that is like high on caffeine through like helping a pregnant woman get to the hospital, but like he's got the severe road rage and stuff, and that's Skater Boy. That's his level with Skater Boy on. Trying to think of other levels.
Very fitting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean he was a skater boy. He said, "See you later, boy. I'm going to drive this taxi through New York in a massive rage fest." That's pretty much what the song's about. I'm sure of it. But yeah, and then eventually these aliens come and take over the world and said that there's no music allowed, and you have to like save the world through dance. And all the different characters from all the different stories. Pardon? Footloose. It might as well be. And all the different characters from all the different stories all come together and they dance their way out of trouble. at the end. And then there's loads of like different difficulty levels that you unlock, and you can unlock different stages. So Believe, the Cher song, that was one I unlocked. I can't remember what that was. I think it was it was to do with a fairground. Oh, that's right. So one of the levels is like this baseball guy who was really grey, and all of a sudden he just lost his mojo, and so was sweeping the streets in a fairground, and then this massive monster comes and tries to take over the fairground, and this kid's like, "Come on, baseball hero, you've got to help us." And so, like, using his baseball powers, he manages to defeat the monster, and then he ends up going back into the major leagues and like becoming like the comeback king. And that's just a song, and you're there to help him along. So yeah, one of the weirdest games I've ever played.
Yeah,
I love that
that's
game so much.
Wildest sounding game ever.
Is that on the DS?
It's on the DS, yeah.
It's an absolute treasure. I cannot recommend it enough.
That actually sounds amazing. Dab, is there any way you could stream that? I would just watch you play that for hours.
I would have to get some crazy camera setup for it. But I also don't really want to play it again.
I think the craziest thing is just how, like, just all of the songs just seem like they're so different. Like, there was no, like, we're going to go with this spot. It was just, like, all over the place. Like, why MCA?
They're all, like, covers that you would get in, like, a restaurant.
Oh, right. So they're not like, they're like only licensing the songs, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, so they've got like versions of the song to make them try and sound like the original. But yeah,
That's
it's like,
funny.
"He was a scary boy," but it's like clearly not Avril Lavigne, and you're like,
Clearly sung by Dad.
yeah, and all sung by me. There's no songs in it. It's not
That's
even
why
a
he's
rhythm
pushing the
game.
game. That's why he's pushing the game.
It's not
I just
a
had a
real
Spotify
game.
playlist on in the background. It's just a fever dream. But no, yeah, I really enjoyed it, but I never need to play it again.
Fair enough. I mean, do you know what? That
Cool.
happens sometimes. That happens so often. Like, you play a game once and like, right, that was an experience. I'm done. There we are. Zach, how about you? What have you been up to?
You know what, guys? This week I've been moving house, so I've been playing very few video games.
The game of life.
The game of life. But I went back because we're going to be talking about a slightly different topic at some point today, and so I went back to have a little look at that game this week. But maybe I'll hold off to talk about that until we get to that stage in the show.
Oh man,
Is it Uncharted?
It's not. I'm not going. Do you know what?
I think we're going to be on you now until you finish that game.
All right.
I finished it.
I tell you what. I tell you what. This week I'll play Uncharted 1. I will finish Uncharted 1. In fact, I'm going to play it tonight. Everyone, I'm going to be unhappy about it. I'm going to be in a foul mood. You know what? Actually, I'm going to play it right before the show starts so I can continue to be mad about it.
I listened to the previous episodes, and I genuinely messaged Zach. I was upset when I heard how he feels about Uncharted. Like, genuinely, like it hurt me a little bit.
But you know what was good? It's good though because you also then fortified the idea that 2 and 4 are the best ones, which is what everyone says. Yeah. And I'm inclined to believe you all. I'm inclined to believe you all because you've all been inclined to believe me about the jank and Uncharted 1.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, that is a clunky ass game.
I didn't need to believe you. You said it, and so I went and got PS Now, and I played through it. The whole thing.
The whole thing with the little jet ski thing. It's so bad.
I mean, that is the worst. That is infuriating.
It's like I just want to go fast. Like you've given me the toys for fun here, and then you've gone no wall, barrels, people shooting at you. You haven't got much health. Ha 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 ha. Like,
no, jet skis are so fun as well as a concept in games. Like Wave Race is one of the best games.
Wave Race is awesome.
Like they could have made it so easy, and they did. Like I'm totally on board with that.
It was Naughty Dog's first post-Jack game.
Yeah.
They got there eventually.
Yeah, they did. There's this.
Don't get me wrong,
really
2's not
did. They really
perfect, but it's pretty great.
The jet ski bit where you have to go up the Whitewater Rapids. It's like they forgot what fun was. They forgot what fun was in that level.
Let's never talk about Uncharted ever again. We're still talking about it. This is episode... What episode is this? What episode are we on?
7.
7? That was 7 episodes ago.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
Still haven't
Just
finished it.
Zach, what?
just play through all of them, then come back and
Yeah.
say how you feel about it as a whole.
Okay.
I promise that everyone at home we're not going to talk about Uncharted until I finished 1, 2, 3, and 4.
And
It
maybe
might be
make a promise.
2023 by then.
Don't make a promise
But-
you can't keep.
Yeah.
No,
So-
I can do it. I can
so-
do it. I am capable of putting myself through that agony.
Well, to be like, two. I feel like you might enjoy it because the game handles better. But back to the original question: what have you been playing? Because I
I've not been
realized that
playing
I can.
anything. The only thing that I've been playing is this game that I don't want to talk about yet because we're going to talk about it later. It's also I think we'll just put it off until then, until we get to the next stage of the podcast.
Okay, cool. We might come back to it later then. We'll see what timing is like. We'll come back. Callum, what about you? Have you been playing anything good in the last week or so?
Yeah, it's been tough for me at the moment because I'm the new releases guy. I buy things on day one, I play through it, I love that, and then every game in the world got delayed and they just stopped making them.
Yep.
So I've had to go back to a few things that I started but didn't finish. So I've been playing Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Deluxe.
Oh god.
Yeah. How is that?
Now, my opinion is going to be biased. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Because you love the original.
I loved the original. I got Blue Rescue Team when it came out on DS, and I put over 130 hours into that game. I was absolutely obsessed with it at the time.
Yeah.
So my opinion is coming very much from a biased place. I'm enjoying it. It's unfortunate that that it's not really changed at all besides graphically.
Yeah, I was gonna say when I played the demo, I was like, this feels like a game that came out 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's ultimately the same game with a nice coat of paint, but I like that coat of paint. It's very much styled after the original concept artwork for the game, which is really nice. And I like the mystery dungeon style of gameplay, the randomized dungeons, and turn-based movement and battles. I enjoy a lot. Yeah, a little bit of Animal Crossing here and there when I can get to it.
Yeah,
But that's really a game that it's not fast.
yeah. It's I mean, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know me and Dav have put quite a lot of time into it. I mean, I put in way more time than Dav, but I think when I started playing Animal Crossing, it was literally like I had nothing else to do, so I would just sit there for ages, just going on trips every like couple of hours, just trying to get as many materials as possible. But how are you finding Animal Crossing? How are you finding that?
I'm enjoying it. I unfortunately have not been able to do that as much. Through the whole lockdown, I never stopped working, and actually my job got a lot busier when all this started. So I've not really had the time to invest in it like I did in Wild World, which is the last one I'd played.
It's the same one those two
on the
guys played as
DS.
well. Yeah, all three of you
Yeah,
played
that's the
Wild
one.
World
That's the
last
one I
time.
had.
Yeah, I skipped New Leaf. Not deliberately. I just never got to it.
Same.
It's
But
a
yeah,
lot of-
I'm
it's a lot
enjoying
of
what I've
effort.
done so far. I'm just very far behind. I still haven't unlocked terraforming or anything like that. I've like just barely opened up my first museum, so
Yeah.
it's still pretty much the start of the game for me because I've not had too much time to get to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's incredibly well made. I like the island idea.
Yeah.
I really enjoy hearing you
Yeah.
guys talk about Animal Crossing because it seems like a really like I as like I say I haven't played since Wild World, so I was kind of a kid when I was playing that as well. But it's nice hearing like people who play what I would call, I don't really want to call it this, but serious games. You know, games where it's a bit more intense or whatever. Not
Yeah.
serious, but you know what I'm saying. A bit more.
Yeah.
But to hear people who usually playing that kind of stuff to have that to delve into, because I think apart from anything else, like even though it is a little quiet and slow and stuff, like if you're working hard, that is exactly what you want at the end of your day.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely,
you
it's
know,
such a zen game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
like you can have a roast dinner every night, but every now and then you just want a bag of marshmallows.
I love that. Love that.
Animal Crossing is a little bag of marshmallows.
Little bag of
A little
marshmallows.
Flump.
Yeah.
Animal Crossing is the
Flump.
flump of
No,
video games.
I know. I totally agree with that sentiment as well. I think it sometimes surprises me especially when I go on Twitter and when Animal Crossing first came out, you'll see a whole lot of people going, "This is just what I needed," and then people like going, "Oh, but it's not mature and there's not people's faces being blown off." I'm like, yeah, but you can do both. You can play
Yeah.
Doom and you can play
Yeah,
Animal
yeah.
Crossing.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
But that was Zach's personal Twitter account, wasn't it? No faces being blown off.
I mean, there was a load of
Yeah.
memes that came out of Isabel in Doom, which and
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
loads,
Yeah.
and I loved that. It was so great. I saw loads and loads of them.
You know what's really scary is when you said there was a load of stuff about Isabel. I didn't see any of the stuff with her in Doom, but I assumed you were going to say that there was that she was in some way sexualized, and I'm glad to hear
no.
that the internet
No.
hasn't done that yet.
No.
It has.
I mean,
they
Yeah,
probably
just-
have.
yeah,
I
we
just
just-
wouldn't
Oh,
dare
no,
look
don't
for
say
We
it.
this.
weren't going
Don't
there.
say
We just
this.
weren't going there.
Okay,
Rule
hang on,
43,
guys.
man. Rule 43.
Hang on, guys. I'm
yeah.
gonna quickly share my screen while we look for that.
Rule 43. If it exists, there's probably pornography.
Yeah.
on it.
There's probably
yeah,
pornography.
Yeah, that's true. But anything else, Callum? Anything else? Because the thing is, there's been a lot of big games that have released recently, like you said, like Final Fantasy VII came out, and then it was.
Oh God, yeah.
Did you
Yeah,
play?
of
Have you
course.
played Final Fantasy VII?
I did, yeah. That's part of the reason I didn't get to Animal Crossing for a while. I bought Animal
okay.
Crossing, and then like 4 days later, I got Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Exactly what happened with me. I just put Animal Crossing to the side. I was like, okay, well,
Absolutely.
this is-
Yeah. Oh my God, I loved Final Fantasy VII Remake.
the music.
yeah.
man, honestly, the music.
Absolutely
Yeah.
incredible. I really enjoy it. Obviously, I'm not going to delve into spoilers. It's quite a recent game. But some of the way they tease potential changes
Yeah.
from the original storyline. Holy crap, the cutscenes are beautiful.
Yep.
Graphics in general, with the exception of some weird spotty places,
Yeah.
are quite good.
So this it was the first game I actually spoke about on this podcast, and I did say at the time, and I imagine you might agree with me, is that the main characters look amazing, like so smooth and so really, like so good. And then you'll talk to someone, and they look like they were made in 10 minutes, and that's not an exaggeration. They genuinely look like they're from the Wii or the GameCube, and it's just
Wow.
it wouldn't matter so much if it was. Because like the thing is like Fire Emblem Three Houses, the graphics aren't amazing, but if it's everything is like that, then it's kind of easy to deal with.
Totally, yeah.
But when you're
It's-
facing off against something that's so amazing and you're seeing something else, it's like, ooh.
It's quite jarring. You
Yeah.
can go from looking at the most beautifully rendered thing, and you're feeling mind blown that your PS4 can power this kind of thing, and then
Yeah.
the next thing you're looking at is like it's from a PS2 game.
Yeah,
It's a really weird
absolutely.
juxtaposition. Though I would recommend watching the Digital Foundry video on it,
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that
because
they're
there are some
amazing.
places where it feels like it's a mistake. In particular, they pointed out like where the door to what is essentially your
The famous
apartment looks awful, looks horrific, but a random door downstairs that you can't go through looks beautiful.
Yeah.
And they're like, something is going wrong here.
Yeah.
Like that cannot be deliberate. So I don't know if they ever fixed anything to do with
I
that.
don't-
I
I-
really haven't been back to the game since I played through it in
I've been
like 3
using
days.
my PS4 quite a lot recently because I just finished Horizon Zero Dawn, and at no point did I ever get like an update for Final Fantasy VII. So I could have missed
interesting.
it, but I don't think they've. I don't
It
think
gives them
they've
an
touched it.
excuse to make the Xbox and PS5 version,
Yeah.
the definitive edition. You know, we fixed the door. You know, that'll be
It's now
Twitter bait.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Potentially, although I mean, this is a discussion for another time. But I mean, I don't know how prevalent remasters are going to be next gen. Not only because of backwards compatibility in both consoles, but also for a technology that's being developed by both Sony and Microsoft. But Sony have already filed a patent on it for essentially real-time remasters, where you're playing an old like backwards compatible game and the console in real time is swapping out old textures for new ones you've downloaded.
That's incredible.
And so the idea is that they wouldn't have to go through the effort of making a remaster of a game.
yeah.
Well, it depends on the game. Yeah, maybe not with Final
Totally
Fantasy VII
depends on the
Remastered,
game.
But
Yeah.
obviously, if it's something like Eco or Demon Souls, you know, then
Yeah.
they're going to have
Sure.
to do a whole shebang.
And
But
I
yeah,
think there
totally
would
get you.
still have to be musically, surely as well, like because there's that whole.
Yeah,
thing
it depends
where-
how far back you go.
Yeah.
For sure. But in terms of remasters like Last of Us Remastered, where it was only a year later and it's not great,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, I'm not sure we're going to see too much of that at the start of next gen.
Yeah.
Definitely not on the Xbox with their smart delivery.
Hmm.
But again, Sony haven't really said much about their sort of plans for that. But also, takes companies adopting that strategy as
Yeah.
well. Like, for instance, EA were talking about Madden, and they're saying, we're not doing smart delivery, but if you do buy Madden on the Xbox One, you will get it on Xbox Series X before February. You've got to do it before February, and then we're going to stop it. So they're not doing smart delivery. They're doing something a bit different, which is maybe going to be a strategy that a lot of companies are taking with Sony, because they don't seem to be employing the same strategy.
I think they'll try, but I think EA are already facing a bit of backlash over that. And I think once we're at the point where these consoles launch and people expect smart delivery, because hey, these games are doing it, all of these games, so why isn't EA doing it when that becomes a bigger thing? EA's maybe a bad example.
I was going to say,
because they don't really care
what
people think.
What people think. No.
Unless Disney are involved in it, they probably just do what they want.
But other companies in general, I think, would look at that, and if it became the norm, as it were, they'd want to avoid maybe straying from that. We'll see.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really cool, man. The one crazy thing I've read recently though is that some people are complaining about the Xbox smart delivery. Some people are complaining that like you because they're basically saying they're going to release games as well on both consoles, and you can play them or you can play the same one on both consoles. People are like, no, because I want to see the new games. I want to see the new graphics. I'm gonna have to wait 2 years.
Sure.
I there's a part of me that goes, okay, I get that. I get that we want to see new, and I get that we want to see like amazing graphics, but it does always take, at least from my experience of playing games, it does always take a little bit of time before games start going, oh, okay, this is when games start looking incredible. Like the end of the system, the games usually look, they might not run as well because they've got as much out of them as possible, but they tend to look better than the first part.
But then that argument kind of, to me, seems like it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what they're trying to say. Like, and it's coming from a console market perspective. Yeah. If you look at a PC market, if a game releases that can be played on something with a sort of mid-range graphics card to this top-end RTX stuff, it's still the same game, but you get access to different levels of graphics. And what Microsoft is saying is we're going to be doing that with Xboxes. So you can have an Xbox One X that can play Halo Infinite, and you can have an Xbox Series X, or Xbox I think it's probably going to be called, that can play Halo Infinite. And you get the same game, but that one, you're going to want to play that one, because it's going to look a lot different to that one, and probably run a lot smoother. And I think just because a game, it's different, because if you go back to old console generations, going from the Xbox to Xbox 360, right? If you were developing a game for both systems, you had to spend a lot of that development time creating two different versions of the game. Whereas now what Xbox are trying to say is you're making one version, but you've got a spectrum of systems that you can play it on. Yeah. That is just wider than you're used to. Well, yeah, I mean, you get more something similar to a PC market as opposed to a console market.
I think a good example of that someone could say that I'm talking absolute nonsense, but for me, a good example of that is The Witcher 3 on Switch, because there's a lot of people who think, I mean, to be fair, that was probably the lowest you could probably go with that game, but then playing that game on the highest system settings looks incredible. It does kind of look like a different game, and I totally agree with you in that sense that it just does feel like a weird argument that I've read, but then a lot of people didn't think The Witcher 3 should have been on the Switch, so I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe it's interesting. Yeah. This generation's a little different in where next generation's really going to shine is for the first time not in graphics. At least I would say potentially for the first 3-4 years, graphics, they're going to look better, but they're not going to look life-changingly better.
Nothing's going to look like the Unreal 5 demo. Nothing's going to look like that.
I don't know, because if you look back at the Unreal Engine 4 demo that they showed at the PS4 reveal, games started looking better than that pretty quickly. Like, if you go back and look at it, if a game launched like that, you would say it has bad graphics now. And at the time, people were saying, but will games look this good? And quite quickly, they did.
I'm going to have to go and do that. I'm going to have to go and have a look at that.
I'm going to watch it. That's a good show.
I recommend it. Look at Unreal Engine 4 tech demo, PS4, and it was shown in 2013.
It's also kind of impossible to look at that now and understand what that meant to us then. Yeah. Obviously, back then, the Unreal 4 demo was like, it's mind-blowing. And obviously, you're right. Fairly soon afterwards, graphics, people were working with the Unreal 4 engine maybe a lot longer. Whereas it feels like the way that that was scripted felt like it was in a place where people had more time with the engine, and it felt something a bit maybe a bit more achievable. Like it felt like more of a game, I think. Whereas with this, it just felt like barely a demo. It was like a very slow walkthrough, and it had a lot of those gaming tropes to like remind you, oh, this is kind of a game. But it was definitely more of a hard tech demo than maybe the Unreal 4 one.
The difficulty is it wasn't really for us. The things that are so exciting about next gen, and the reason that Sony is really struggling with messaging at the moment, is the things they're doing with PS5 that are revolutionary are so on the development side that it's really hard to get that messaging to the player of why that's different. And it's not just the speed of the SSD, which genuinely does make a difference. You can't buy an SSD on the market for your PC at the moment that has the throughput that Sony claim the PS4 is supporting. We're getting them soon, but as of right now, we don't have them. And so a lot of people say, well, my PC has an SSD and I'm not seeing games with no loading times and things like that. But ultimately, like with the Xbox debate, at the moment, every developer will develop for lowest common denominator. And so games on PC don't utilize the SSD too much because they're also making that game for a console that doesn't have an SSD. And so in terms of actually how the game loads data, how it fetches data, has to be written for a hard drive, which mechanically works different from an SSD. And so it can't actually take advantage of those extremely high input and output speeds. Whereas if we're at the point where someone's making a game just for PS5, they can have textures loading in at stupidly fast rates to the point where we genuinely can get games that don't have loading screens, which is insane.
But you say that, but again, why a game made now might not have a loading screen, but why wouldn't you push the architecture and the hardware so hard and to sacrifice have a 1 second loading screen? If you could make this game that much better, that much more in depth, that much more beautiful, why wouldn't you sacrifice having a 1 second loading screen? I don't see how developers
it's not that they're not.
Do that.
It's not that they're not. They are still pushing graphics forward. They are still talking about having bigger open worlds than ever, having better geometry, have more realistic physics engines. All of that is also still coming as well. The difference is we're now also talking about how restricted games are because of data streaming. If you look at Spider-Man as the main example that Sony's been using, they had to restrict how fast Spider-Man can move. They wanted to go faster, but the data for the world simply couldn't be streamed in fast enough. You would go faster and you'd go into the city quicker than the textures would.
That game was incredible in that sense, because when I played it recently, it's like you are still flying through there, but there's so much flying towards you. I can't imagine how hard that must have been.
Absolutely, and for that reason, there are genuinely gameplay restrictions to throughput, and on top of that, the big thing with the Unreal Engine 5 demo is, the graphics looked really good, but what they were talking about when they were explaining that they're using genuine film assets and they haven't had to create LODs. So LODs, LODs, are essentially like lower quality models. So if you create a character model for a game, you create this ridiculously beautiful, high polygon count, high resolution model. And then you're making, let's say you're publishing this game on PS4 and PS4 Pro. For PS4, you might have to have a lower quality model, and you have to make a completely separate model for that. What we're talking about now in Unreal Engine 5 is they're taking these film quality assets that have a crazy amount of polygons, a crazy amount of triangles that a console up until now has not been able to physically produce. You had to make a console special version that could be displayed properly and use a lot of different texture tricks to make it look high resolution and high quality. We're saying now you can just plop them in there. So that not only saves a lot of development time and work, that also means you can get genuinely really high quality models in games rather than having to use texture tricks to make them look high quality. And that changes how lighting reflects on them and everything. So there is a lot of amazing work that we're going to be able to see in games, but it's so hard to market that right now in a way that, like, God, if you look at any developer on Twitter right now talking about these consoles, especially if you look at them talking about the console wars, they're talking about how everyone's talking about teraflops and it doesn't matter. But the reason everyone's talking about teraflops is because that's how we understand things. We understand things in gigabytes, and we understand that we're given a number. And they say, right, the Xbox Series X has 12 teraflops and the PS4 has 10.2. And so everyone looks at that and is like, cool, so Xbox Series X is more powerful. And yeah, graphically, technically it is. But then Sony is now doing a really bad job of explaining why that doesn't matter for their games.
Yeah.
And the problem is, when we're talking regards to SSD and throughput, sorry, I know I'm going on a tangent here, is that if Microsoft is saying that all their games are also going to be supported by Xbox One, we're not just talking Xbox One X or even Xbox One S. We're talking about the original giant fat Xbox One that looked like a VCR from 2013, that even when it came out, we were talking about how underpowered it was and that it should have been more powerful from the offset. And that's something they had to fix with the One S. And if they're saying now that they're going to make these new games run on that now 7-year-old hardware, there is potentially a genuine argument to how far can you push games if you're trying to support that system, because it's not just graphics anymore.
Yeah,
of course. And there's two things really I want to say to that, is that I don't believe they're going to keep supporting the original Xbox One. I think it's going to be a One S and One X, maybe just the One S. Not even the One X. Just like, you've got a really cheap model. I've got the all digital, the Xbox One SAD, the all digital Xbox One S. That'll end up being a Project X streaming box. And then you've got your Xbox Series X. I think that's what's going to be. I think the old Xbox One, I think they've tried their best. Like, they've been Don Matrick early. They brought in Phil Spencer. They've done all this other stuff, all the pro-consumer stuff.
Oh, yeah, they've done
I think
an
they're trying
job.
to get rid of that stuff, and they're going to go, all right, Xbox One S onwards. That's what we're going to focus on. And
I think they're going to really struggle to market that. I think if they decide to go that route, I think it's going to get really messy and really confusing really fast.
I think maybe initially they'll have the original Xbox One, but like same with like iPhones, for instance. You know, you have an iOS that comes out, and that'll only support maybe 8, 9, and 10. iPhone 8, 9, and 10, and then eventually your iOS will develop to a point where actually it'll go 8, 9, 10, 11, and then it'll go 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
I think that's what might be what happens. I think for them, the console generations don't exist anymore. I think they see them as
and they've said that.
Yeah, I think they see them as sort of PCs for your living room. And on top of that, what I think is great about the Unreal 5 demo and what they were talking about with sort of the different, not making LODs, just making one beautiful thing, is they were also talking about you didn't have to create LODs because the game would, the engine would go, right, this is a less powerful console. Let's take out some of these triangles. Let's make this a little bit more basic. And so hopefully, to go back to what Johnny was saying about the argument that you read, that we don't need to make sacrifices because the games will do it for us. You know, the engine will work out what needs to be done, and it will save the developers time from making more than one version. And then my other point I was going to make about the throughput on the PS5 and the sort of the teraflops on the Xbox, along with all the other different stats and hardware stuff, is that what it seems to be is they're both going to be putting out the same thing. But the way that Sony is doing it is by putting through lots of packages at once over and over again, but at a slower speed. Xbox will be putting through less packages at a quicker speed, but then per second, that'll basically equate to roughly the same. And
I mean, ultimately it is worth considering that just like in every generation ever, you're going to get those videos from Digital Foundry and you're going to be staring at the screen trying to see the difference between the two of them. And ultimately, when you've only got one console, that doesn't matter to you. It is going to come down to the games. But I also do think, when they announced the PS5 event the other day, before subsequently postponing it, there was an interview, I want to say, with Jim Ryan, where they were sort of asked about showing PS4 games, and they said, look, we're not interested in showing games for PS5, we're interested in, for PS4, we're interested in showing you games that can only work on PS5, we're not looking backwards. And it's a very, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for this. I think what Microsoft is doing is incredibly consumer friendly. It's great for people who can't afford to upgrade immediately. It's great that they're still going to play Halo Infinite and whatever other launch titles there are for Xbox Series X. It does make me wonder, is there going to be a quality difference between PS5 exclusive launch games?
Yes.
And I mean, obviously, we won't know until we see some of these games.
So the only thing I was going to say is because guys, sorry to push you. We're going to have to move on. We've only got like 5 minutes
sorry.
left. But it is it's really interesting. I think the next 2 years are going to be so like trying to keep tracks of all these things, especially the differences that Xbox and PlayStation are going, the directions they're going in. It is interesting because again, I do think, and I think you guys would agree, PlayStation are. I know they were supposed to have an event and they postponed that for obvious reasons, but I think even still, I do feel like Xbox is kind of, we said this last time, it's kind of already in the narrative, whereas PlayStation, we've still not seen anything. And I think that for the first maybe 6 months might, I don't know, we don't know what's going to push people. It could be graphics, it could be, like you said earlier, the teraflops, people will be persuaded by that, but I am interested to see what happens over the next 2 years, because I think we're all probably going to get at least one, I imagine.
Yep.
But
yeah, absolutely.
Maybe
Day one.
some of us will get to as well. Yeah. So I've got to move on just because I haven't got much time left. I'm going to briefly talk about one game that I've played. I'll mention 2, and I'll talk about 1. Me and Dad finished Streets of Rage 4 on Monday. I just want to briefly say, if you haven't played that game, 1, watch the stream. 2, buy it. It's or if you've got Games Pass, play on Games Pass. It is so good. The way they've managed to keep the game, I guess, having the core ethos of it did what it did have 26 years ago, 25 years ago, whatever it was. It's still there. Me and Dab did a little battle at the end where I played as Axel from the 90s, and it played like Axel from the 90s. It was so weird because I was so used to playing as Blaze. But yeah, if you haven't played it, totally recommend you playing the game. In any, buy it, play it on Games Pass, but definitely give it a try.
Streets of Rage 4 is one of those games where it didn't have to be a 10 out of 10. You can still have so much fun with it. It's still an 8, Yeah. It's a very polished thing of what it is.
Yeah.
It's not trying to break any boundaries.
Yeah.
It's not trying to do anything new. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel, but it is a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and playing that co-op is very enjoyable.
It was, I can imagine. I mean, it is definitely a lot more enjoyable playing in multiplayer. I mean, playing that on my own, I would enjoy it, but me and you, a lot of the fun that me and you were having was like, we're getting attacked from both sides and trying to fight off people coming into the doors or what have you.
The fun and the frustration.
The first level, just briefly say. So me and Dav hadn't played the game for about a week. Well, we hadn't played it for a week, not about a week. It hadn't been a week. It had been a week, and we had to do the first level like 4 times because we were so out of the flow. I hadn't touched it all week, and I was like, I'm getting my butt kicked by guys from the first level. And then we got to the boss after we played it for like 2 hours, and we beat the last level in one go. But it's such a great game. The next game I'm going to briefly talk about, I'm not going to talk about the story stuff because I know Dav's playing it as well, and he has actually been streaming it recently. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I didn't play this when it came out on the Wii, although I have always heard how good it is. I played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and it's one of my favorite games. I am in love with Xenoblade Chronicles. The
so
original.
good.
It's so good. The story is like, I was surprised how quickly the story was gripping me. It was straight off the bat. It was like, okay, I'm invested to the point where, and I know I mentioned Rosie a lot. If you don't know who Rosie is, she's my fiance. She was watching me play the game. She was like, "Oh, I might be interested to play this because of the way the game plays, the way the game looks." It was very much something that she would enjoy, and I just think there are a few things that I think, okay, yeah, it doesn't look as nice as the trailer showed it, and yeah, okay, the voice acting isn't great. It's a bit stale. It's a bit of its time. You can tell it's around 2010. It's very much like, oh, I'm going to get the Monado. Yes, let's go, Shulk. And it's kind of voice acting has moved on so much that it kind of stuck out. At the same time, I kind of loved it. I kind of love it for that. The one thing I was going to talk about beyond those things, I guess, actually, the 2 things I was going to talk about. One is music. I kept wanting to find new places to explore just so I could hear the next track. I was like, okay, I want to do all these quests as quickly as possible so I can get to the next stage and hear the music. And every single place I've gone to, the music is incredible. Every single stage of the map that I've got to, the music is so incredible. And I love how they've given a modern arranged version, but you can also listen to the classic version as well. I did listen to the classic version for about 5 minutes, but I was like, I'm just going to listen to the arranged just because that is new and that's going to be... It's incredible.
And it's lovely hearing the different arrangements of the same theme at different times of the day. In the town in Outpost 9.
And it is things like, it is just little things like that it's weird because I recognize a lot of those things from Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but I'm now like, oh, this is where obviously it came from. But yeah, absolutely brilliant experience. And the one final thing I would say, looking at the world around when you're just walking through, and there's a lot of mountains, there's a lot of things you can see that it looks like you could climb. I totally understand why they use Monolith Soft for Breath of the Wild. Just from the way they've been able to build that world, you can totally see why they use Monolith Soft, because when I was looking around, I was like, oh, this feels like it could fit in Breath of the Wild. But yeah, that's kind of briefly what I want to talk about, because I want to move on to just a couple of fun things to finish the podcast, because we've only got like 5 minutes left. First things first, have you guys seen the aerial photos released of Super Nintendo World in Japan?
Oh yeah, that looks fun.
When are we doing a Video Games Ahoy trip to Japan just to go to Super Nintendo World? Because like, oh man, I felt like a kid. I was looking at it, and the first thing I thought of was my brother, who has 2 kids, like 8 and 5, and they're excited. Me and my brother were like, yeah, but they're not as excited as us. We've been listening to hilarious. We've been waiting 20 years, you know. Like, but yeah, have you guys like? What do you guys think? Have you seen anything?
I haven't even seen it. I don't know anything about this. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
Have a look at the pictures, just because they've done an aerial shot of the Super Nintendo World in Japan, and it looks so great. There's a Mario Kart ride that they're building, which goes through all different types of levels, and there's loads of other cool things. You can see Princess Peach's castle, which is it's so great. And apparently they're building a Donkey Kong world as an extension beyond.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, man, and cool.
It's really exciting. It's within Universal Studios.
Yeah.
They announced a few years ago. This is the first one they're building. They are also building them into a couple of the ones in America as well.
Yeah, Florida. There's definitely one in Florida in 2023 because I checked.
Yeah.
Straight away I was like, when am I going?
I cannot wait to visit them. The only thing is, they call it Super Nintendo World. It's Super Mario World.
It's Super Mario World. That's
there's no Zelda representation. There's
Which
no
is
Kirby.
shocking.
There's no Metroid. There's no Pokemon.
I was quite shocked. Apparently in the original designs they wanted to have something to do with Zelda, because it's probably the second biggest franchise for Nintendo. But apparently they went with Donkey Kong because Donkey Kong has, I guess, for a lot of adults, like with their bringing their kids, at least they will be able to recognize. They'll all recognize Mario, but they'll go, "Oh, I remember Donkey Kong from when I was a kid." Maybe that's why they went for it. But they've got room for expansion. But Zach,
totally.
Have you seen the picture?
I haven't, because I'm not going to look it up because, as you know, where I am at the moment, my connection is always...
That's a very good point.
Just on the edge of destroying the podcast. So I don't want to do anything else.
What I'll do is, at the end of the podcast, you can have a look at the picture and I'll put a quote of whatever you said. Just for you. Just be like, it looks terrible.
Here.
Zach Hamilton.
That is a very plausible thing for me to say.
Another controversial Zach Hamilton opinion.
Here he comes.
Quickly want to move on to one of the last things, because I want to finish with something really fun. There's been Nintendo leaks on Amazon France, and there's been a load of games, and I just want to get your guys' opinions on what you think they might be. So the first, I'll give you an example of the companies that have leaked on. I don't know what the games are, I have no idea, but it's Take-Two, Square Enix, Ubisoft, Bethesda, Capcom, and Koch Media.
Yeah.
So there's a whole load of games that Fallout, Bethesda.
Right, start from the top.
So it's Take-Two. That's the first one.
What does Take-Two mean?
GTA. Rockstar's subsidiary of Take-Two, I believe.
Right.
Take-Two just announced they're releasing
Take-Two
93 games.
Bunch of companies.
Yeah. Take-Two have so much.
They
Probably
just
be a
released,
private division thing.
Yeah,
The Outer Worlds, is that
also
out yet on Switch?
Mafia. They just they could put that on as well, but
They've done a good few Switch things already. They did L.A. Noire, they did Outer Worlds, and they have done Civilization 6.
They literally just put up Borderlands, the Borderlands collection, XCOM 2, and Bioshock. So, yeah, I you've got to feel like it's got to be a GTA, right?
I don't know. I don't think GTA 5's ever going to Switch.
But apparently, someone has someone they did get a GTA 5 running on the Switch, and if the Switch is,
I mean, that makes sense.
It's more powerful than an Xbox 360, and GTA 5 was on the Xbox 360, so.
Yeah, I still don't see it.
Yeah, it would have come
5.
out by now. I feel like, but
It's not very. And didn't we just get some information about GTA 6?
That it's in early development.
Yeah, in development, yeah.
But even
GTA
still,
5
to even be talking about it, I feel like no one's going like. Surely, maybe I'm naive, but surely everyone's played GTA 5.
Well,
at this point.
Right,
still
but
in
they
the
just
charts.
like.
It's still in it's still in the UK charts.
The amount of old
Oh my
ports coming out on
goodness.
Switch at the moment, I wouldn't put it
Yeah.
past them. The only thing I would say though is that they're already talking about they're not sure when they can release GTA 6 purely on the basis of where the world's at right now.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, especially with what's going on at the moment. I'm not sure they'd want to release GTA 5 anytime soon.
Yeah.
On any
that's a
other
good
platforms.
Yeah.
But if you haven't played okay, PSA happening. If you haven't played GTA 5 at this point, you probably don't want to play GTA 5 at this point.
And
It's
yet
in.
somehow it's in the top 10 UK
It's still
sales
in the
charts
charts.
every
I
week
don't
since
get
it launched
it.
in 2013.
The
However,
sales take into
2013.
account DLCs and microtransactions.
so
does
it doesn't. So the NPD charts are
the North
specifically
American
just
one
game
do they?
sales. But even over here, it's just retail sales. It's not even counting downloads.
Yeah.
But there was an interesting thread I was reading on Reddit that had a bunch of pictures attached of like copies of the game coming with like X amount of shark cards,
Yeah.
and the game
Yeah,
with the
that's
shark
true.
cards being
It's
cheaper than the shark cards.
The shark card, yeah,
So
that's
people
a good
buying
point.
copies of the game to
Yeah.
get the shark cards cheaper. So
Yeah.
there's some things there, but.
Yes, we're going to move on to the final thing because we are literally running out of time. And it's just a fun thing to do. We talked on Metacritic last week. So I've actually got the top 10 list of the highest rated games of all time. So there was 2 games that were on there twice for different consoles. So I've kind of removed those 2 games. So it's technically a top 14, but it's
Top 12.
It's well, no, because one game was on there 3 times and one game
my
was on there
God.
another time. Yeah, you'll probably guess what that game is as well. So yeah, we don't necessarily have to do this in order, but throw some names to me. What do you think?
Why
what do you
don't
think
we
is
take it in turns, one by one?
Okay, and then see if you can get one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going top rated on Metacritic.
Top rated on Metacritic.
Okay.
Top 10. That, like I said, there was some doubles in the original top 10 list, so this is expanded to the top 14. But yeah, the top 10 different games is probably what I should say.
Cool.
So who wants to go first? Dav, just go. Throw us one
Ocarina of Time.
as number 1.
That must be the one that's on 3 times.
It's number 1. No, it wasn't.
It's on twice,
Really?
though, right?
It's on twice because it was
Right, the 3DS.
3DS just missed out. So that's number 1. It's the highest rated game of all time with 99 out of 100. Callum?
That feels basic.
I won't be super high up, but I'm sure it'll be on there somewhere. The Last of Us.
It is not on there.
No,
It just misses out. Just
All
missed
right.
out on 96.
All right.
Just missed out on
I
96.
swore.
Zach?
Dang. Is there a Pokemon game on there?
Is that your guess?
I'm gonna say no. It
Gold
won't be.
and
That's
silver.
what people like. Mario 64.
Nope.
No,
Dav?
I didn't. I wasn't confident on that.
I'll
One.
give it like a
I'll-
couple of goes round and then I'll just
Yeah,
say
yeah.
that.
I'll go Pokemon Gold and Silver.
Nope. No Pokemon. No Pokemon.
Critics hate Pokemon, surely.
Breath of the Wild.
Yes,
Yeah, of course.
it's on there. But it only just scraped in. It wasn't in the original top 10. It was like, I think it was like, or maybe it was something like 11. Maybe it was around there. But yeah, it's on the list I've got. Zach?
Skyrim.
Nope.
Really?
I hope not.
I'll go with.
Oh, guys, come on. When that came out, don't give me that. No, absolutely not. Okay, I don't want to play Skyrim now, but in 2011...
No,
Skyrim
it's a
was
good game,
Yeah,
but
it's a
it's
big
a
deal.
Bethesda bug fest.
Yeah, it is.
Ha-
Dav?
That's
Half-Life
why
Alex.
it's so good.
Half-Life Alex is not on there.
Oh, but Half-Life 2.
Yeah,
Nope.
Half-Life 2. No,
Not on there.
really?
No,
Really?
it's not on there. So we'll go
Dude.
around twice. I'll give you 2 more guesses each, and then I'll tell you the list from bottom to top. Okay.
Oh man.
So Zach,
We've got to figure out which is on 3 times, but...
you'll as soon as I tell you what it is, you'll.
I think we've
yourself.
already spoken about that game, like just now, maybe.
Yeah, GTA 5.
Yeah,
Zach,
that's my
do you wanna
guess for
guess?
the one that's on there 3 times.
Oh well, I'm not gonna do. I'm gonna go with Doom.
Nope.
I'm going to
Davs?
go Mario Kart DS.
Nope.
Oh my
the
god.
best
There's,
Mario Kart.
there's two answers on there that you will be like, really? Yeah. I'll tell you the list. So you, yeah.
One
We'll
more
go.
round.
One more round. One more round.
All right. Okay. Oh god, high rated game that might be on this list. I'm going completely blank now, which is unfortunate. Super Mario Galaxy.
Correct.
Nice.
Hey!
It's number 5.
And I bet you Sunshine isn't on there.
Sunshine is
The far
not
It's
on
superior
definitely
game.
not.
Is that your guess or is
Far
that?
superior. No, it's far superior.
I
so
no,
love
I'm gonna go
Sunshine, but
we'll
it's
do-
not
I'm
a
gonna go
top
with-
10.
We'll do
I'm gonna
last.
go-
Well, last. Oh, Zach, you going?
I'm gonna go with Shenmue.
Nope. Dav,
What?
last go. Last run.
Oh, I'm
through.
livid.
Final Fantasy 7.
Nope. Callum,
Yeah.
Oh god, another
you're gonna
one.
kick. Some of you are gonna kick yourselves when I tell you all the lists because you're gonna be like, of course.
Tetris.
Nope.
Any version.
What
Okay.
the hell? Okay,
Should be.
what about... what about the game version of the 2005 movie King Kong starring Jack Black? 'Cause if that's
Number
not on there-
2.
Any Metal Gear Solid games?
There's not. So I'll go through the list from bottom to top. Remember, this is all the games, and there were some doubles, and I'll tell you which
I
ones are
want to
doubles.
keep guessing. Give us a genre instead of the game.
We haven't
Give
got
us-
time. We've run out of time.
Let us shout
Goldeneye,
out, let us shout
Goldeneye.
out.
So
Goldeneye.
here we're gonna go so it's 97. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3,
Yeah.
Breath of the
that's
Wild
good.
97, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 97,
Sure.
Grand Theft Auto 5, which was on there 3 times. It was on the Xbox,
Yeah.
PS4, and PC. Ignore the Tony Hawk's Pro
Ridiculous.
Skater 2 because that's actually I'll get to that now. Red Dead Redemption 2, Super Mario Galaxy 2. This is
What?
probably the one Soul
Get in the
Calibur,
bin.
the original Soul Calibur on Dreamcast,
Calibur
which
1?
is amazing, by
Really?
the way.
I
Two's
played it.
better.
See, I think
Yeah, 2 is better,
good.
but still, 1 is amazing. Grand Theft Auto 4,
Hmm.
and then Ocarina of Time.
Really?
That's it.
I'm disappointed.
That's the
I'm
list.
disappointed in a lot of those.
Looks like I don't like games that are 97 or above.
I can think of 3 Metal Gear Solid games I like better than most of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that
I can think of
again,
10 games I
we,
like better than all
we
of those.
mentioned it last week that like Metacritic scores a lot of the time. I mean, it's crazy
Yeah.
to think so many of them are Nintendo and so many of them are specifically
Yeah.
Zelda and Mario.
The older games though were at a time when less people were reviewing, and Metacritic
Yes.
didn't exist.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
they were like Ocarina of Time. If Metacritic was out when Ocarina of Time came out, there's no way it would be 99.
So the 2 oldest games on here. Ocarina of Time is from the original. That's from the N64.
Yeah, but no one was reviewing it when Metacritic came out.
Oh no, but
Metacritic
they've
didn't
still
come out.
that's apparently still claimed from all the reviews they compiled them together.
But the amount of reviews back then
Yeah.
was probably 10% of the amount now.
Yeah, true. But yeah, the oldest game on there is I think either Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, which I think was 2001 or 2000. Ocarina of Time is the oldest, but almost a perfect score. Gents,
Man.
that's it. That's the end of podcast number 7. Thank you very much for listening
Wait,
today.
wait.
Yes.
Zach, what were you playing?
I'm not playing any. Oh yeah, we never got to talk about what I was playing.
Well, we were going to do a segment, but
10
we
seconds.
clearly ran
10
out of time.
seconds, Zach.
What was it?
It was Zelda 2.
Oh, Adventure of Link.
Do you know
We were
what?
going to talk. We were going to talk about games that surprised us.
Yeah, we were
and
about to
I was
move
gonna
to
talk
the
Link's
next
about-
Adventure, sorry, it's called.
and I was gonna
interesting.
and I was gonna talk about how Zelda 2 is surprisingly good, and I can explain why, but I can't right now because it's the end of the episode.
Well,
Next week.
on Video Games Ahoy
Oh, that means I have to play it more.
and Uncharted. Next
Oh,
week,
no.
Zach spontaneously combusts. Thank you very much for listening. This has been podcast number 7. If you enjoyed the show, then follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Patreon. Tell your friends. Give us a review, a comment. Like I said, we love talking to you guys, and we've had a lot of love recently, and we really, really appreciate it. Dav is streaming the 2nd episode of Batman this Sunday at 1 p.m. British Standard Time. British Summertime. British Summertime, that's what it is, BST. Sounds like a sandwich. So make sure you catch him out there on Twitch. And thank you to Callum. thank you so much for coming on
Thank
to the
you
podcast
for
today.
having me on.
Thanks for coming
It's
on,
been
man.
an
It was
absolute
awesome.
pleasure, man. You are officially a friend of the podcast, so you're welcome back whenever you want. Make sure you follow him
Yeah,
on
we'd love
Twitter and YouTube, Multi-Callum. I'm sure he'd really, really appreciate it. Make sure you check out his videos as well. They're absolutely fantastic.
Thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure, gents. But as ever, to you listening out there, stay safe. We love you all. This is Video Games Ahoy, and we'll see you next week.
Ahoy.
Ahoy.
Bye.